Uh, Facebook was not active this morning on the stream there, so I hopped over to the tubes. Let's see what we can get going here. All right, this is how I'm looking this morning, doing my morning cardio, and let's get this rolling. It's kind of early in the morning on a weekend, so may not be much in here, at least stateside. There might be some people in Europe. We'll see what happens. Hold on, I got to adjust this vest. It's slightly uncomfortable there. All right. And we'll see what we get for people in here. Far more likely to get lively in here. I can run these a lot longer. I get super bored on Facebook because people don't chime in sometimes till 30 minutes in, and I've done some 45-minute ones. And they're walking, and it takes that long to get people. Here, we get conversations and engagements a lot faster. So, doing my morning fasted cardio, got my weight vest on. I always tap it so people can hear the plates. You know how people are. They'll be like, there's not really plates in there. Because I'm just like magically losing body fat and getting leaner for no reason, you know. All right. So I'm going to try to get my 45 minutes in, I think, in one go here. I split things up yesterday. I did like 45 and then another 20. But it was also Saturday. So definitely non-lifting day. Non-lifting day today too. Uh, and yeah, so if I'm going to do any extra, it's going to be on the weekends. Definitely something like a Saturday works. So, see what we get for people hopping in. All right, these are hit or miss. You never know. Some of these I get 20, some of them I get 150. You just got to play it by ear. But I'll let you guys get some conversations going here shortly. But otherwise, until then, fasted cardio. And I'm finding more and more, the longer I do stuff, I've really gotten more into all the fasted training. I just feel that I get so much out of it. Right? I get so much out of it. It's helped me. I get a lot leaner. I find it way easier to get leaner. Plus, look at the volumes I'm now doing. You know, I used to say, oh, it's too hard to do the volume. Same thing I used to say, it's too hard to do the volume on lower carbs, right? It's just too hard. But once I adapted to it, it's not hard anymore. And that's the amazing thing with the human body and your metabolic machinery. You know, I'm finding with it, yeah, your body really just taps into its body fat stores. And even if you eat later, it still works out really, really well, right? Because we still have enough glycogen. You know, that's a weird idea people have that if you're on low carbs, your glycogen stores go down. That's not true. If you're fasted, your glycogen stores are way down. They're down a little bit from the fasting, but you still have 95% of them. Okay. And if we're only doing a little lifting for an hour and a half and then an hour of cardio, I mean, that's not too bad. And I think what we have to remember there too, and there were a bunch more people down to 3 viewers. We have up to like 12 and then it dropped. Oh well, some others will come in. So the thing to remember with that, your glycogen stores don't get really that depleted unless you're running a marathon. Okay. And if anything, if people forget that they're like, well, the lifting part, it's all glycogen being burned. Well, for the reps themselves, but the breathing, the metabolic increase between sets, I can go right back into body fat. I then go into dietary fat, body fat. And so I'm finding the fasted training works well. Plus, I don't get sick to my stomach. That's been a problem for me with light training with some diets I've run. So when I was doing, and I said like, oh, Whole Foods, I can remember when I was lean bulking a while back after I trimmed down some, and I was doing watermelon and rice and chicken. I got my bench up finally. I was running into a lot of problems on lower body days, wanting to puke because all that whole food. And now I find fasted training eliminates that even more so when I take the carbs down, because then I have less stuff in my gut in general overnight. And if we get to a situation like that where I'm pretty much training on an empty stomach other than liquids, I'm not getting nauseated. I don't feel like I'm going to puke. I don't have GI tract distress. We don't have any of those problems. So I'm finding it's producing really high quality training. The same thing with the cardio. Once you get used to doing these things, um, and especially once I drop the carbs down further, I feel like it's done nothing to burn into my body fat stores. Everyone's like, dude, you just keep getting leaner. I'm eating a ton of calories, a ton of calories. Are any of you people going to ask any questions or talk? I guess not. It's going to be me just rambling to the camera for a bit while people trickle in and out. I get it. It's early, though. I get it. It's early. That was very specific. All right. Okay. People speculate about that. Why has he got special ringtones for people that he has to answer? That's the way it is. Okay. So let's get over to back to the stream. Sooner or later, some of you are going to have some comments and questions. Sooner or later. But this one's going to run a bit, so we have plenty of time, guys. We got plenty of time to get this flowing. But until then, back over to my point. Everyone's like, you're getting leaner and leaner. Are you planning and training? I think I'm using no fat burners. I don't have to. That's been the beauty of it. If you have your stuff dialed in, I mean, again, my diet's super clean. The carbs are low, protein ultra high. I'm doing all my training fasted, including the cardio. So camera says, oh, hello. Do you gain fat on a cheat day? Yeah, in theory, but it'd be a small amount. I haven't had a cheat. I don't recommend cheat days. I recommend cheat meals. Don't do a whole day. All right. Cheat evening can be fine. Yeah, in theory, you could gain a small amount. You do know your body's ability to gain fat in a 24-hour period is extremely low. Okay. Like, realistically, for you to gain a whole pound of fat in a week, if you lift weights, is really hard. So when people are gaining all this fat, they're literally gaining it over time. Like, no one ever got fat from one day of eating, right? Look at some of those competitive eaters who are shredded and eat 15,000 calories in a competitive eating contest, yet they're 8% body fat. Why is that? Okay. You do know there's an upper threshold of what your gut can absorb in a single day. And this is why I tell people, if you're going to do a cheat or a holiday, you can prepare for it ahead of time. You walk in there fasted, you do some heavy training first, you create the need, you may not gain any fat. Or if you do, it's going to be 50 grams. Okay. Right? Because how much calories do you think you're absorbing in a day? And it is depending on the composition of your diet. So yeah, I mean, if you're eating a bunch of pizza, so all saturated fat, grease, and refined low fiber carbohydrate. Okay, that's something like that, or ice cream, sure. So you can store more of that. But when you start looking at more complete whole foods, you don't absorb everything you eat. And there's an upper threshold depending upon the composition of your diet to where it is literally possible for you to defecate out 5,000 or 6,000 calories that you didn't absorb. theory, you could do 20,000 in a single day. If you ate 25,000 calories, I promise you, you're going to poop out 15 to 20,000 of that. It's going to go out of the back. You're not absorbing 8,000 calories in a day. That would be, to even go above 5,000 requires extremely processed foods to even do that. So this is why it's hard to get fat on whole foods. We start adding high protein, fiber, training. It's pretty easy to stay lean if you're eating that way. And then, and it's because of that, right? In other words, if you're eating chicken, brown rice, and avocado, absorbing 6,000 calories of that is actually probably not going to happen. It's probably, depending upon the size of your GI tract and metabolic rate, may actually exceed your absorption rate. And there's math on this stuff, by the way. This is why, when these topics come up of why in endurance sports there's such a science between around absorption and making sure they get enough carbs and fat to the point where they eat specifically processed, engineered things just to stay carved up for these endurance events. Like, you're aware of that, right? There's a science. So it's not like we don't know what the gut can absorb. There's literally a whole field of sports science dedicated to this purely because of endurance sports. So we come back over to, when you factor in the thresholds of your GI tract, there's a reason the cheat day thing or cheat meal is successful for people on cuts. Because if it's exceeding your complete entire threshold for the day and you only gain a small amount of fat, and the other 6 days of that week you're in a deficit that exceeds your cheat day fat gain, you're going to lose fat. And it doesn't matter how much you ate on that cheat meal at that point. It's when we start passing that full day mark where we start really accumulating it. Okay. Just like you look at the carb overfeeding studies, where those women were given 1,500 calories of extra carbohydrate over their maintenance, right? And only 1 or 2 grams of it stored as fat in the lab. Your body just ramps up thermic effect in that case. Now, fat can store more efficiently, but even then, fat subtypes don't all store at the same efficiency either. So it's actually really hard to get fat. Like, people don't understand that. Like, there's a lot of work into getting fat. Like, if we didn't have the junk food we have, it would be impossible. It's biologically impossible for a physically active person to become obese without eating certain types of foods. It just can't happen. They can gain a little fat, but it's going to be at such a slow rate. But again, we come over to, I tell people to lean bulk anyways, because we don't actually have to gain any fat to gain muscle either. That's been debunked in the lab. So kind of my point, why are people gaining fat at all? Complex topic. But I would say alcohol is a big part of it too. And I sort of tell people, look, if alcohol, refined sugar, and refined fats completely were made a felony in the U.S., you do realize, other than criminals who are buying it from their butter dealer, within one generation, 99% of the obesity would be completely gone. It would just be gone. Oh man, what a topic that would be. Right? Nobody wants to talk about that. Everyone's still, let's just try to moderate and leave it all out there. And a few tiny people who can moderate will be okay, and the population as a whole suffers. And then people pull that nonsense of we can't demonize foods. Really, we absolutely can. What a load of rubbish. Like, when we know biologically obesity would 99% go away if about 6 specific things were eliminated and we couldn't get access to them, it would disappear. Why can't we demonize foods? Especially when tons of those foods are then also linked to separate inflammation and cancer beyond the body fat. And then people want to say we can't demonize those foods. I think that we can. I think that we absolutely can. Because they don't have redeeming qualities. I get there's certain things out there that we argue about whether they should be legal or not, but we argue because there's benefits. There's no benefit to the existence of table sugar. Tell me you can't sweeten foods without it? Because people want the dopamine hit from it. They want hyperpalatable foods. There's no redeeming qualities, right? Not even the healthy way to bulk someone up who's had a muscle wasting disease or something that they've dropped down to insanely low body weights. That wouldn't even be my first choice to bulk them back up. Why wouldn't you just use healthy fats at that point? When you just use peanut butter, why would you need to give them a bunch of refined fructose and load their liver with it while they gain weight? I guess you're going to harm their health, especially once they're back into a surplus. Like there's no need for that. No need for it. So, I mean, I would make the case that there's no viable reason for any of this garbage to even exist. Like if we had any sense as a society, um, it would just be gone. Right? If we as a society had sense, the more intelligent people in society would simply remove this stuff and then tell, the rest of the population, sorry, you can't have your junk food. We would just eliminate it. Like, well, we really should just do it that way. We need to really petition for that sort of thing. Because it's a case of, sure, we could argue about freedom. I think we can make the case for that. But when you have a generation that has been indoctrinated into self-harm because they've been told this stuff is food when it's not food, is it really even their free choice at that point? It would be like if we introduced heroin to a whole population of children and then we vote on do we keep it or not. That's the equivalent of what we've done with garbage food. It's messed up. Do you think Tyson held back? No, I don't think Tyson held back at all. And I was rooting for him, but it was very clear he didn't. I think Jake Paul held back at this point. So do you think a thick neck is good to have for everyday life? The thick neck or a strong or back of the neck? I think some extensions are good. I don't recommend you build this part. Sleep apnea. Right, for your everyday, day-to-day, I don't know that I would recommend that. Extensions, yes. Not the front and side. Because you're going to get, what's going to help you with whiplash and stuff, it's going to be the neck extensions. Right? That's what you want. That's what you need. So that's where the benefit would be. Oh, where am I at? I normally walk this way. So again, if you want my opinion on that. All right. This one may not be as lively. It's probably too early in the morning for people. I don't think we even hit 20 people at any point. Higher protein intake or fiber, which is more viable for body composition? I know the answer is both. And here's the problem with the question. When we say more, you need to define that, because if we go too much protein and the fiber gets too low, we're going to have health problems. Okay. Is your body composition going to improve when you're impacted and have constipation? So I don't like hypotheticals like that. Like when we know that two things are extremely valuable and we have the option of doing two, why do we create these hypotheticals? I mean, hypothetically, the protein, but you gonna eat 10 grams of fiber a day and 500 grams of protein a day. So if we're going to take your extreme, um, it's going to create harm. It's going to be harmful to you and then counterproductive. All right. How far do you walk, brother? I for step. I go for time. 45 minutes is my current working target. I don't worry about distance. I don't worry about steps. I don't track any of that. I use the clock. I have no idea what my step count is. You could estimate it. If you see my current pace, um, I do 45 minutes. If people who track step count could probably estimate that. I've never used a step counter in my life, so I have no way to approximate. I did have some trainers I know who watched this, some friends of mine who are coaches and trainers who are big into step count, who are like, yeah, you're definitely getting your 10,000 from a single session usually. But it's not normal steps, is it? I've got a 50-pound vest on, so we're not really playing, and I'm over 200 pounds. So this adds up. So think about it again. People are like, Coach, you just keep getting leaner, but you eat a ton. Well, yeah, think how much fasted calories I burn on a daily basis. It's, plus, think about the metabolic health. Was this adding years to my life? That 50 pounds, dude, that 50 pounds makes all the difference. Man, the first time I threw 50 pounds on and went and walked in it, I was like, oh my God. Now it's just so normal, but it makes a big difference. And anyone who says it doesn't has not tried it. Oh, 50-pound vest on, go walk for a half hour, come back and tell me. Come back, tell me about it. I mean, considering both are on a good level, say 30 grams of fiber and 1.5, what would you add from that point? So if you're getting 40 grams of fiber, and you wanted to recomposition, and you're at that point, I would add protein. I would double that protein, right? And it's not going to give you more muscle. It's going to strip fat off of you. You're not going to get any more muscle from that, most likely. There was a recent study did showing more, but it's only a single meta-analysis and it's new and it's in question. So we're going to see how that pans out. I saw Minnow rip it apart the other day because he did a meta-analysis with the 1.5 grams. So he was really unhappy about it. But we'll see what happens in more of that data. That's going to be fascinating. Oh man, we're all going to, if that really turns out to be true, and it's not just fat loss from that extra, it's more muscle growth, even if it's a tiny amount. Or the evidence based on it, you're going to have to eat crow again and just go, we should just all do like the bros. We just all need to do body part splits, which is we're realizing are okay and work great. They're equally effective for hypertrophy, but man, the joint and tendon is way different. That's one reason I switched over to it. I had to eat crow on that. Remember? One of those where I got up and said, hey guys, that was wrong. I guess the data wasn't right. And what the bros did absolutely works. And then it was really great for the joint side. I had to take a bite of humble pie on that. And it worked. I mean, there's a point, guys, where when we step back and admit we were wrong and eat some humble pie, look at the benefits. I've benefited from it personally, of me stepping back, setting my ego to the side, and saying, oh, I guess I was wrong. Sorry about that. Oops, my bad. And I'm the best physique I've ever had and still improving. I agree with you regarding the fasted cardio by, especially if you combine it with the thermic effect from the low. Yeah, I mean, the fasted cardio, when the protein overfeeding aspect of it is so phenomenal. That's what I point out to people. You're not violating calories in, calories out, because those are tissue specific, and that's a nuanced conversation. But when we start protein loading like crazy on top of the fasted training, the metabolic benefits are tremendous, and that's what I'm finding. Right? Absolutely finding it. Is it possible to consume such a low amount of fat, or even in a calorie surplus, you gain significant amounts of body fat? Um, yeah, it's totally possible. Again, dependent upon the carbohydrate type, when you give people those experiments, they're always like, they go out of their way sometimes to try to prove it wrong and then hurt themselves, right? I've seen people do that. You tell them that, and they're like, oh, so I can eat any. So then they go eat 3,000 calories of table sugar. And you think I'm kidding, David, but people do stuff like that. I've seen it. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Well, because you said. So then they eat the sugar, they eat the carbohydrate that is most likely to actually convert to body fat, even if it's in small amounts. They go out of their way to do it. So it's kind of like self defeating. Um, no, I mean, if you ate rice and nearly zero dietary fat, and as long as you're not deficient in your omega 3s and stuff, um, it can actually work quite well in that regard. But we also have to have that conversation, though, about the insulin, potential insulin resistance at a certain threshold. Um, yeah, I mean, Matt's got a good point. If you start developing deficiencies, you don't feel good, and it turns into a problem. I feel like realistically, the best way to lean bulk, if we're going to do long term, may be to just protein load and to not try to eat such an excessive surplus or do stuff like I'm doing now. Um, and the other works, but he's got the problem. It's like, if you can sustain it. If you can sustain it, it does work, by the way, what we're talking about. But a lot of people can't tolerate palatability eating 20 grams of fat a day and getting all their fat from fish oil. You know, it will work if you can tolerate it. But every time you jump off and eat a cheat meal, you see the problem? You're going to store all that fat. People won't do it for 2 years straight. They're not going to eat 20 grams of fat a day for 2 years. And keep in mind, you're still going to accumulate some if the calories are high enough. And that accumulation will add up over months. It just may not be enough for your percentage to go up. I mean, so again, it is hypothetical, and yeah, it can work. I've said it will work, and I've done it for periods of time. The problem is, I don't know that it's sustainable. As someone who's messed with it, I've used it. It clearly works. I have done it, and hypothetically, it could work indefinitely. But it's not going to always be sustainable for people. Maintaining it is very, very, very difficult. All right. Hey, Matt, I am refusing to answer non-fitness questions at this point. Even though I'm very familiar with that topic, by the way, as soon as you said the term, the Latin term, I knew exactly what you were talking about. I'm not going to be discussing any of that. It's going to be a fitness channel only, though. And I'm going to try to ignore those comments, but because you're such a regular engager, I'm going to give you enough respect to tell you I'm not going to address it. But please don't ask me non-fitness stuff moving forward. Okay. All right. Until the rule changes, because I want this to be a purely fitness channel at this point. I'll occasionally throw up a guitar clip, right? But I'm probably not going to discuss them. But fitness, fitness, fitness. Um, so yeah, David, I mean, hypothetically works, and it definitely works short term. I'm finding I'm enjoying the lower carb approach more. It's just more sustainable. I've always enjoyed it more. Um, when I lost the most body weight, when I was obese, those phases were usually in the lower carb with some fasted stuff too. So now that I'm incorporating it as a serious lifter, I'm finding it still works really well for me. Even though a lot of that's hypothetical, it's about preference in a lot of ways as far as some of those tools go. Um, but I'm getting good results even now doing it. And it's undeniably good results because we see the changes on camera. So it's working pretty effectively. Um, I'll turn around because I can't risk people's music getting in the background. I get screwed on that live. So they're playing loud music and they'll pick it up. All right, go back down this way. You know, sorry guys, we got to get out of there quick. So there's only a few seconds of it. Can't be having copyright issues. I need to pee soon too. I peed before I left, but it's going to interfere with my 45 minutes, I think. I'll try. I'll try to get home. But you know, it is what it is. I think with this, probably going to wind down so I can shuffle home back home. I think I'm at the 40-minute mark already. So I just got to get back to my house. The loose skin that you show. Okay. Okay. So I think we're going to wind this down. I'll do another live stream for you guys later. So I'll talk to you next time.